This is the Twin Worlds update. It's going to be actually leading us into a route. The fan discs are actually a little bit shorter, I believe, than the main games. Also the side games, like the Joker, appears to be a little shorter. So here we go. Okay. And then we're going to go on ahead and load this one, because that's where we left off. She's like, huh? This is the day after she had met up with Nightmare about the crazy storm, and he had explained it. She's like, the hallway is somewhat noisy. I heard the footsteps of them and the fluttering of voices of the employees talking. I can't clearly hear what they are saying, because I was reading in my room. It was a holiday, so I got up and stood with the book placed on a sofa, and then asked in the hallway, hey, what happened? What happened? Opening the door, I took only the upper part of my body out and tried to call out differently to a nearby employee. The employee's like, oh, sorry, was it noisy? And the other employee's like, excuse me, excuse me. She replies back, no, it's fine, ... Was there any trouble? Was it really an accident at our amusement park? Asking worriedly, the employee shook his head at my question. And the employee's like, no, it's not a problem. Don't worry, don't worry. Is that so? Then why are you all fluttering about? The employee's like, well, that's right. We're fluttering about because the employees came to have fun. And a male employee makes a voice comment. A female employee continues to talk about it. And she's like, yes, that's right, it's fun. I knew it would be. And I was talking to an employee who didn't realize it yet. She commented. He's like, because you have to be prepared, because you will be busy during it. She's like, question mark, what? The employee did not seem to be in trouble from the beginning, but I asked if there was a problem and now realized that it wasn't like that if I had looked at the atmosphere beforehand. But what is fun? Question mark. Needless to say, the question seems to have come to the forefront. One person taught me this with a cheerful voice. They're like, the Arashi storm is coming. They're like, the storm is coming, yes. She's like, eh? ... And then Nightmare's voice clip plays because he's talking about, from her dream, the wind is born, Arashi comes, and then it ended. She's like, Nightmare's voice is fascinating. She's like, it's simple, ... She's like, storm. There's a storm that makes them go crazy. It was a few hours ago that she was taught this in a dream, and when I woke up, I felt that the time I spent with him was far away, and I had forgotten a lot so far from then. Even though I wasn't told to come, I did actually wake up and have something ... However, if I remember this, I feel like I was saying I was going to get to it someday. What she was thinking about. She's like a storm that covers the country in order of territory, and even if you don't know the order, it'll be sure to come here or to go here. She's like ... crazy storm ? When I tell them to cough it up, the information, the employees look surprised by the statement this time. And the employee's like, do you know? The other employee's like, you're seeing it for the first time? ? Perhaps the owner has already explained about it. ? She's like, yeah, not from Galland, but I was listening to someone a while ago, and she's referencing in her head Nightmare. She's like, I didn't say who it was to anyone, but the employees didn't seem to care.
Ah, そうなんですか。役持ちの方は我々より先に気づきますからね。
Yakumo is like, roll, so he's like, oh, is that so? Those who have a roll will notice before us.
私たちは今気づいたところなんですよ。それでつい騒いじゃってすみません。
Because they're part of the general public, they represent the second hands on the clock and they're faceless unless you get to know them, which she does most of the time, so like they become able to be like individuals to her. But anyway, they're like talking about how those with faces, the ones with rolls, would notice before them, and he's like, we've just noticed. It's so noisy, and I'm sorry, ... in between. She's like, no, ... I'm apologized to again, so I repeat that it is all good. I remembered the voice of Nightmare again right now.
特に君の滞在地の住人は嵐を歓迎するはずだ。彼らは楽しいことが大好きだからね。
He's like, Daisuke, they love fun things. But he's like, especially the residents of your place should welcome the storm because they love fun things. She comments as Nightmare said. The temperament of the owner, it's common amongst the employees and then also the weather. She's like, but you said you have to be ready, ... I hear that it is an unavoidable storm, but is it not a weather phenomenon that I know of? Like, what kind of preparation is necessary for this? The fact that the roll holders noticed first, Galland and the others should have already noticed then, ... She's like, a crazy storm is coming. This seems to be something that I need to hear in detail. And the little boy is like, hurry, hurry, Dad, Mom. He's like, next time I want to ride that.
元気だな。もうかなりの数乗っているぞ。目が回らないのか?
He's like, I'm sure it's fine, the man. You've already been riding a lot. Isn't my eyes closed to it already? The boy's just like, well, you're quite indifferent until all of everyone else is on board to do it. And then you're like, I'm not going on or it's home for everyone. And then the woman's like, yeah, please give me a break. As a mom, I can't get along very well at this pace. So she comments too that she's against it. And then she cuts them off. She's like, you may have gotten us lost. And she's like, ... Hey, can you show me the map of the park? The man's like, oh, is that so? ... He's like, yes, but this one ran. She's talking about the boy. The woman comments. She's like, because it's large, you don't know when you walk too far. It's different. ... He's like, so let's turn back. I don't need to be in a whorehouse.
まさかおじけづいたなんて言わないわよね。
And the woman taunts him. She's like, oh no, don't tell me that you're scared.
そんなことは言ってないだろ。行くぞ。
He's like, don't say that, I'll go. And she's thinking to herself, I don't know, ... She's like, while listening to the voices of the frolicking customers, she walks around the park looking for Galland and Boris. However, it is difficult to find them. She's like, where have you gone, ... Maybe not in the park? If you notice that a storm is coming, you'd call me, but maybe they are out. She's like, because both Galland and Boris are missing. Galland is the owner of the amusement park, but that is not all. In this world, 3 territories compete and continue to fight for power. It's unbelievable, but the amusement park is one of them. That is, Galland is also a lord. He is also a power here. And she's like, sometimes it's not shown to me, but it's inevitable, and I don't know that they are in the midst of a conflict. Because they keep her out of it. But she's like, probably when you go out without knowing where you are going, you'll end up in a conflict. She's like, I don't know much about it from them when they have come back, but it was like an implicit rule. And surely if you were injured, you wouldn't be silent about it. She's like, that's not a problem. However, as I repeated, there were parts that I got used to.
Oi, Alice!
And then someone comments, oh, hey, Alice, question mark, question mark, question mark. And she's like, exclamation mark, what? She's like, return the voice to me in my ear. Galland? And that's his name right there. She's like, I think it was Galland's voice. Even if you look around, you can't find anything, though. The voice was too far, like from a long distance.
違う違う。こっちだこっち。
He's like, no, it's different. Come here. And then she's like, where? Question mark, question mark. And she's like, it's ringing around one's back again. I heard someone's voice.
そっちじゃないそっちじゃない。上だよ上。
And Boris is taunting her. He's like, that's not it, that's not it, that's not the right way. She's like, this time it's Boris's voice. She's like, 2 people together? Eh? Question mark. I look over my head, and the figures that I was looking for were far above me. She's like, what are you doing? They were riding something like a small lift supported by a column, so they're working on something. She's like, they look like workers doing electrical work. However, I noticed immediately. The lift is not installed on the telephone pole. It is a support that supports the rails of the sky cycle. She's like, maintenance work, question mark? Asking briefly and loudly so that you can be heard in the sky.
ああ、そうだ。なんか客から走行中に変な音がするっていうクレームがあったんでな。
Galland replied, oh yes, somewhere, there was a complaint from, or he's like, somehow there was a complaint from a customer that a strange noise was heard while they were driving it. She's like, what was it? Even so, it is rare for 2 people to work on the same repair. The maintenance of on-site equipment is basically an employee's job. She's like, are you free, question mark? Galland loves his amusement park, and Boris loves remodeling and the maintenance. They may be more a part of the entertainment than work at this time, she's thinking. She's like, Boris is scared because it seems to be remodeled in the gap, ... If it is done to improve the speed by slipping it. She's actually talking about how Boris will make her scared if he's, like, remodeling it. Because he would improve the speed by, like, making it slip. And she's like, ... She's like, it becomes a dangerous attraction until the sky cycle lands, and I don't want you to take it for granted.
降りていきたいが、今手が離せないんだ。
And Galland's like, I want to go down, but I can't take my hands off this right now. And she's like, I guess I was going to be walking around the park alone later. She's like, I don't ride attractions alone. And it seems that they were looking for something themselves, and then they told me sorry. She's like, it's all good if you're working and you can't help it.
ごめんね。あともう少しなんだけどさ。
They're still apologizing. And she's like, I'm going to be waiting for you. Work properly, she tells them.
わかってるって。ああ、それよりアリス、朗報だ。
And then Gallon cuts in. He's like, I know. Oh, more than that, Alice. Good news for our roll holders. And she's like, even in the distance, you can see that Gallon's eyes are narrowed happily.
嵐が来るぜ。もうしばらくは先だろうが、そのうちにな。
He's like, a storm is coming, and it will be some time away, but it's coming soon. She's like, exclamation mark. I was cut out from the other side by this statement coming without me asking about it. Apparently, Gallon was also aware of the storm. And she's like, yeah, I actually wanted to hear about that in detail. ... And she's like, before that, I heard from Nightmare, but because he's like that, I won't go into details. ... She's talking about how he's like really confusing. She was gonna go looking for them for a decent answer.
ああ、なんだ、そうだったのか。作業中じゃなかったら、俺が真っ先に教えてやったのにな。
Gallon's like, oh, what is that? Well, if he wasn't working at teaching her, he's like, I'll be the first to teach you.
従業員に先を越されたね。まあ仕方ないよ。嵐はみんなに平等に来る。
And then Boris is like, well, you're ahead of your employees. There's no help for it, though. The Arashi comes to everyone equally. So he's talking about the storm. It hits everyone equally. And she's like, equal to everyone? Why? It's a strange expression to be said. And she's like, no, that's true, but I usually don't say storms are that way. Because for them it would be true, but she's like, not normally. And they say it like something is nice and exciting about it. And she's like, what is so much fun when something or someone goes crazy?
もうしばらく待ってくれ。終わったら詳しいことを教えてやるよ。
Gallon's like, wait for a while. I'll tell you more when we're done. I answered yes to the voice from above and decided to wait quietly. She's like, after the maintenance work of the two people was over, we moved to the cafe and surrounded the round table with 3 people in the garden. He must have been thirsty at work, because first he moistens his throat with a cold drink, and then Gallon said something brightly.
ハートの国に嵐が来る。久方ぶりのクレイジーストームだ。
He's like, the storm comes to Heart Country, Alice, and it's the first crazy storm for you.
いや、おっさん、いきなりクレイジーストームだなんて言っても、よそ者のこの子にはわからないんじゃないの?
And Boris cuts in, he's like, no, Uncle Osen. He's like, if you suddenly say it's a crazy storm, don't you know this misleads a child? Boris looks at Gallon with his amazed face, and I answered before Gallon could. She's like, I know that. I know the name and existence, but I don't know the details. ...
わかるの? なんで? 確かアリス、嵐に会うのは初めてだよな。
He's wondering why, which is the only person that so far has asked, like, really. Because he's like, oh, do you understand it already? And he's like, why? Alice, this is your first time in a storm, question mark. And she's like, that's right, but... ... And then telling Boris, who is tilting his head, what she had heard in her dreams before from Nightmare. She's like, when they finished talking, they were all looking a little funny, and Gallon holds his tongue.
ナイトメアの野郎、漁師を差し置いて。確かにあいつはこういうのを察知する能力が長けてるが、だからって抜け駆けかよ。芋虫のくせに。
So he keeps cutting himself off, but basically he called him a really bad word. He was like, aside from being a lord, ... He's like, I'm sure he's good at detecting this, but that's why he's going to run out, ... Because he's a worm, ... And she's like, that worm is Nightmare. And there are 2 names for roll holders in this world. It seems that he is often called Caterpillar or Helmneth because he does not come out from within the dream.
出し抜かれていたとは面白くないね。それに、先だって教えるなら、俺たちにも教えてくれりゃいいのに。
Boris is like, yeah, it's not as interesting as it seems to have been made out to be. And he's like, and if you told us earlier, I would have loved to have told you this too. Or told you this too. She's like, because this is my first time, I don't want to be confused on it. She's like, I'm not going to follow along, but I do tell him what was told to me.
なんだかな。あんた、相変わらずあいつとは仲がいいみたいだよな。
And Galen cuts in. He's like, well, what do you think about what he said? He's like, you seem to be on good terms with him as usual. Good. And she's like, oh? Question mark. Well. She's like, I don't mean to say that we were bad friends. It's dark. It's like I'm in a dream. She's like, that's not true. I'm a good, healthy child with an average sleep time, she thinks. Like, I don't overly hang out with him. Nightmare is not good right now. I want to hear and learn more about that crazy storm from someone else. She's like, he is also enthusiastic about Nightmare and has been in a good mood. I have to hear it from the two of them clearly, though.
詳しくって言われてもな。多分、ナイトメアが全部話しちまっていると思うんだが。
Galen cuts in. He complains. He's like, I don't want to think that I'm talking all about everything for the Nightmare. And she's like, it's not everything. It's not at all. She's like, sometimes a storm will come out and ... make something in the residents go mad. She's like, this is what I know. She's like, I don't understand the whole picture. She's like, I thought this was so, but Galen was also right.
それだけ聞いてるなら十分だ。それで全部だよ。
And he's like, if you listen to that, it's enough to know that. He's like, that's all that there is to it. She's like, ah? She's like, is this all? Like, ... No way. She's like, I don't know if I at all like this. As I said earlier, there's a little too, less information available for her. She's commenting on the fact that there's too little information. Gently and lightly, I embark on, leaning against my back, and the arm touched the table with a splash. The paper cup of juice shook on the wobbling table, so she, bumped it. And she's like, in the first place, because of it being a storm, will there be a storm or a heavy rain? She's like, Nightmare isn't entirely not right, I was saying. For me, a storm is like that. I don't know any other phenomena.
あ、いや、違うよ。そういうのも嵐って言うってことは俺たちも知っているけどさ。
Boris is like, no, that's why we're also talking about, our kind of storms versus regular. Boris denies it.
この世界の嵐というか、クレイジーストームは違うんだよ。雨が降ったり、雷が鳴ったりはしない。でも、風は起こる。
He explains that the storm in this world, or the crazy storm, is different. It doesn't rain or thunder, but the wind is there, he comments after a ... She's like, wind? Question mark. Is it just a storm?
暴風ってほどでもないな。割と強いが、そこまででもないし、しばらくしたら止むし。
Galen cuts in. He's like, it's not as bad as an actual storm. She's like, ... What does that mean? She's like, well then, no big deal. She's like, if that's the case, I don't call it a storm.
いや、風は大したことなくても嵐だよ。何せ、俺たちの何かを荒らして狂わせていくんだからな。
And she notes that Galen's like, the wind isn't a big deal, but it is definitely a storm. Nightmare's face overlapped with his for a reminiscent expression, in her mind. She's like, I don't know why, ... Arashi, just because it makes the residents crazy. So, the storm, just because it makes the resident crazy. In this world, storm does not seem to mean a meteorological phenomena, like in her, she's thinking. But it seems that the wind is still blowing. And she's like, ... That wind is the composer, isn't it, of the storm? She's like, does it contain a component with the mysterious action that makes people crazy? Or is there no such confirmation of some contamination, she's asking. And she's like, Nightmare said that the cause was unknown. ... And she's like, there are a lot of things I don't understand. And there are too few people in this world who can actually explain things. And she's like, so what is that something? ... dot dot dot. This is already a crazy world. I don't want anything more crazy to happen now.
それは嵐が来るまでわからないよ。ムナさんもそう言っていなかった？
And then he's commenting, Boris, he's like, I don't know until the storm comes what's going to change. He's like, did Yumima say that? So that would be like the dream demon. Yumia's dream. And she's like, dot, 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 I was saying. She's like, it's hard to know who's going crazy until a storm comes, but he said it was a trivial thing that was not serious. So she was still explaining and he cut her off. She's like, but, dot, 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 that's not true. She's like, my common sense is different from him, and for nightmares, little things, they may actually be serious for me.
そんな心配そうな顔するなってアリス。狂わせられるって言ってもいたずらみたいな内容だ。
Galen's like, you look worried, Alice. He said that we were going crazy, but it's like a joke. It's his mischief, he tells him.
そうそう。
Or them.
参っちゃったなーって程度に困ることはあっても、お祭りだと思えばいい。
Boris is waving off. He's like, yes, I've been there. He's like, I think it's a festival, even if it's kind of a problem. She's like, festival? Question mark. I whisper back with the soft voice. The crazy landlord doing something in the climax were largely to occur at the same time.
そう、祭りだ。他の領土の連中はどうか知らないが、少なくとも俺たちはそんなものだと思ってる。
He's like, yes, it's a festival. I don't know about the other territory guys, but at least we think it is. He's talking about like the amusement park territory.
遊園地はクレイジーストームを歓迎してるからね。嵐の前には遊園地を飾り付けて、お祭り気分を楽しむんだ。
Boris cuts in. He's like, the amusement park welcomes crazy storms. Before the storm, we actually decorate the amusement park and enjoy the festive mood.
で、嵐が来る直前から園内で宴会を開いてさ、楽しいぜ。
Boris is like, so it's fun right before the storm, question mark. And then he's like, have a banquet in the park with us. She's like, welcome banquet, dot, 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 question mark. She's like, my head is getting confused. To start a banquet in the garden just before the storm, dot, dot, dot. She's like, but is it okay if a strong wind blows? She's like, no, dot, 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 no, it's like a storm. I'm sorry. I still can't figure out what will happen, but it should be an abnormal situation. Nevertheless, I don't know how to hold a banquet. She's like, isn't it weird when you're doing such unscrupulous things?
不謹慎？なんでだよ。せっかくの嵐なんだぜ。騒がなきゃもったいないだろう。
He's like, well, indecent, question mark. Like, why is it supposed to be a big, great storm, question mark.
従業員も楽しみにしている。大騒ぎしながら嵐を迎えるのは遊園地の恒例行事なんだ。
And Galen cuts in. He's like, the employees are also looking forward to it. It's an amusement park annual event that makes a storm in the midst of all of the fuss. Or he's like, it causes us to make a fuss in the midst of the storm. And she's like, regular, dot, dot, dot. It seems that there's a temperature difference in response between him and me. He makes this seem like it's exciting and thrilling. She's like, crazy storm here is treated like a festival. And in my case, I'm afraid to imagine it. Crazy storm. She's like thinking this, hey. When I return to my room, I have lost, unconsciously, the protest against it. She's like, from the outside of the window, the amusement park is noisier than usual. As Boris said, the employees started decorating the garden. I asked if he wanted help, but there isn't anything for a work schedule available at any time until my shift, and until that time I was forced to rest. In the end, I didn't know what it was. She's like, Nightmare was like that also, and when Galen and Boris were talking together, they derailed me more and more, like on her train of thought of what this was. She's like, they have not yet won, though, and although it was said that the storm will still be some time away, emotions that are close to impatience have sprung up in me. Since it's such a welcome mood, it's not a critical thing, apparently, and she's like, dot, 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 no, I'm still worried. She's like getting up from the sitting sofa. Let's go ask the story again from other people. She's like, if you listen to one person and not two people at the same time, dot, dot, dot. She's like, if you take it alone, you might be able to have more decent conversations, dot, dot, dot. She's like, dot, 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 that person is also something that can be mad. She's like, even the supervision of it, like, what goes crazy? What is it that changes them? She's like, this is not a joke. She's like, nothing. You don't have to change or do anything. I do not want you to change because it was that person and I started to like them. I like them very much, dot, 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 an important person. And it's no exaggeration to say that she was left in this world because of that person. That could be changed somewhere by a storm of unknown cause. How might it change? If you know, I need to check it out. She's like, let's meet. The important person I go to meet. And here's where I believe we're going to be starting our route building, because I think the opening events actually ended with all of the like dream sequences and like the bungee jumping and like the other stuff for the prologue. So after this, like, we're basically going to be spamming for routes, and I think the fan discs work a little differently. I'm going to give you guys an option. We can do Nightmare or we can do Boris. I don't really want to do Galland because he's an Osen, and yeah. So, if you guys have a preference, you can leave a comment, and if you leave enough comments before I go to update again, I will have for you guys whichever route you choose for that next update, because I'm going to pre-translate both of them ahead. Since I can do that on my physical one. And that way I'll be ready for the next update for you guys. Alright, this was Twin Worlds, and it's kind of a teaser too for the route. You guys get to pick.